Emily was just 9 years old, but she already understood how hard her mom worked to keep their little family together. Her mom, a nurse, spent long hours at the hospital, always coming home tired yet smiling for Emily. "You're my reason for everything," her mom would say, even when her eyes showed exhaustion. With her mom's birthday only a week away, Emily wanted to do something truly special. In the past, she had made homemade cards or picked flowers from the park. But this time, she wanted to give her mom something real, something that would show her how much she was loved and appreciated. But Emily didn't have much money. For months, she had been collecting spare change, shoveling snow for neighbors in the winter, and skipping the occasional treat from school lunches. Every coin she saved went into a small jar under her bed. By the time her mom's birthday drew near, she had just a little over $6. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. On a sunny afternoon, Emily decided to visit a small jewelry store in town. She clutched her jar tightly, determined to find something her mom would treasure forever. Little did she know, this trip would take an incredible turn. As Emily browsed the store with wide eyes, the sound of a car pulling up outside caught her attention. The door opened, and in walked none other than Shaquille O'Neal. His towering presence and warm smile filled the room, and Emily froze. She had no idea who he was at first, but something told her this wasn't going to be an ordinary day. What happened next would not only change Emily's life but leave everyone in the store speechless. On a sunny afternoon, Emily walked into the small jewelry store in her town, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. She clutched the little pouch of coins she had saved over months, hoping it would be enough to buy her mom something special for her birthday. The store, Goldstein Jewelers, was warm and inviting, with soft lights illuminating the sparkling pieces in the glass cases. Behind the counter stood an older couple, Mr. and Mrs. Goldstein. Mrs. Goldstein greeted Emily with a kind smile. "Hello there, young lady. What can we help you with today?" she asked, her voice gentle and welcoming. Emily hesitated for a moment, her cheeks flushing slightly. "I'm looking for something for my mom," she said shyly. "It's her birthday, and I saved up some money to get her a gift." Mrs. Goldstein's eyes softened. She could see the determination and love in Emily's expression. "That's very thoughtful of you. Do you have something in mind?" Emily opened her pouch, spilling out a handful of coins. "This is all I have," she said quietly. Mr. Goldstein stepped closer, looking at the coins and then back at Emily. "Let's see what we can find," he said, sharing a warm glance with his wife. After a few moments of searching, Mrs. Goldstein carefully pulled out a small silver charm shaped like a heart. It wasn't flashy, but it was beautiful in its simplicity. "How about this? It's from our older collection, and I think it's perfect for your mom," she said. Emily's face lit up. "It's beautiful. Do you think she'll like it?" she asked eagerly. "She'll love it," Mrs. Goldstein assured her, beginning to wrap the charm in a small box. Emily couldn't stop smiling, feeling proud of the gift she was about to give her mom. Little did she know, her visit to the store was about to take an unexpected turn. Emily was admiring the small silver charm Mrs. Goldstein had wrapped in a neat box when the soft jingle of the doorbell announced another customer. She turned slightly and froze in place. A tall, towering man stepped into the store, ducking slightly under the doorframe. He was dressed casually in a hoodie and sneakers, but there was no mistaking him, Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball legend. He was followed by two men who seemed to be part of his entourage, their eyes scanning the room as if ensuring everything was in order. Shaq's presence filled the small jewelry store, and even the Goldsteins, who had seen many customers over the years, looked momentarily awestruck. Emily stood still, clutching the small box in her hands, trying to stay unnoticed. Her heart raced, not because she was scared, but because she couldn't believe she was in the same room as someone she had only seen on TV. She quickly looked back at the counter, hoping to blend into the background. "Good afternoon," Shaq greeted, his deep voice warm and calm. He glanced around the store before stepping toward the display cases. "I'm looking for a gift. Something meaningful but not too flashy," he said to Mrs. Goldstein, who had recovered her composure and smiled professionally. As Mrs. Goldstein began showing Shaq some items, his eyes wandered and landed on Emily. He noticed the small girl holding her box with both hands, her eyes darting nervously between him and the door. "What's that you've got there?" he asked gently, his voice lowering to avoid startling her. Emily hesitated, her cheeks turning pink. Before she could answer, Mrs. Goldstein spoke up. "She's here to buy a birthday gift for her mom. She's been saving up for months and just bought this little silver charm." Shaq's expression softened as he crouched slightly to meet Emily's eye level. "That's a sweet thing to do," he said, smiling warmly. "What made you want to get her something special?" Emily glanced down at the box before looking back up at Shaq. "She works really hard, and I wanted to make her feel special, like how she makes me feel every day," she said softly. Shaq stayed quiet for a moment, his gaze thoughtful. He looked over at Mrs. Goldstein, then back at Emily. "You know," he began, "I think your mom deserves something even more special. What do you think about upgrading that charm?" Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. "I can't. I don't have enough money," she stammered. Shaq chuckled, shaking his head. "Don't worry about that. I've got it covered," he said, standing up and turning to Mrs. Goldstein. "Show her something really nice, a pendant or a necklace. Let's make this birthday unforgettable." Mrs. Goldstein quickly brought out a delicate gold necklace with a small, shimmering star-shaped pendant. Emily's jaw dropped as Shaq handed over his credit card without hesitation. "This one's on me," he said with a grin. Emily looked up at him, her eyes filling with tears. "Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." Shaq placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Because sometimes, when you have a chance to make someone's day better, you take it. Your mom sounds like an amazing person, and I want her to feel as special as you do about her." Emily hugged the box tightly, barely able to find the words. "Thank you," she whispered. Shaq smiled warmly. "You're welcome, kid. Just promise me you'll give her the biggest hug when you give it to her." As he turned to leave, the room was filled with a warmth that no amount of money could buy. Shaq's small act of kindness had transformed an ordinary day into something extraordinary. As Emily stood by the counter, clutching the small box with the silver charm she had chosen, she could hardly believe the towering figure of Shaquille O'Neal was standing in the same jewelry store. His kind demeanor and calm presence were a stark contrast to his larger-than-life reputation. But what happened next left her completely speechless. Shaq turned to Mrs. Goldstein and said, "Let's find something extra special for this young lady's mom." He gestured toward the display case filled with more elaborate necklaces and pendants. Emily's eyes widened as Mrs. Goldstein retrieved a delicate gold pendant shaped like a star. It sparkled under the soft lights, far beyond anything Emily could have imagined affording. "This," Shaq said, pointing to the pendant, "this is the kind of gift a hard-working mom deserves." He looked at Emily with a warm smile. "What do you think?" Emily hesitated, unsure of how to respond. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But I can't afford that. I only have," she trailed off, looking down at her small pouch of coins. Shaq knelt slightly to meet her eye level. "You've already done the hardest part," he said gently. "You saved, you worked hard, and you thought of your mom first. That means more than anything. Let me take care of the rest." Emily's eyes filled with tears as she tried to process his words. "Why would you do this for me?" she asked softly, her voice cracking with emotion. Shaq's expression grew serious but kind. "Because kindness matters," he said simply. "Sometimes, when you're in a position to help someone, you should. Your mom deserves to know how much she means to you, and you deserve to see her smile when she opens this." He handed his credit card to Mrs. Goldstein, who looked visibly moved by the moment. "Wrap it up nicely," he told her with a wink. As she prepared the gift, Shaq turned back to Emily. "And you," he added, "keep that money you saved. Use it for something else, maybe a little treat for yourself." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. She clutched the box with the gold pendant as if it were the most precious thing in the world. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Shaq smiled and patted her shoulder lightly. "You're welcome, kid. Just remember, kindness doesn't cost much, but it can mean everything to someone. And one day, when you're in a position to help someone else, pass it on." The room fell silent except for the faint rustle of the wrapping paper as Mrs. Goldstein finished preparing the gift. Emily looked around, realizing everyone in the store, from the Goldsteins to Shaq's security detail, seemed deeply touched by the moment. As Shaq stood to leave, Emily looked up at him with wide, grateful eyes. "I'll never forget this," she said. He smiled warmly. "And I hope your mom never forgets how special she is to you." With that, Shaq left the store, leaving Emily holding a gift that symbolized not just her love for her mom, but the power of generosity and kindness. For Emily, it was a moment she'd carry with her forever. The story of Shaquille O'Neal's unexpected act of kindness at the small jewelry store spread through the town like wildfire. It began with Mrs. Goldstein, who couldn't help but share what she had witnessed with her friends and customers. Soon, the tale of Emily's determination to buy her mom a gift and Shaq's generosity was the talk of every corner in the community. At first, it was the neighbors who stepped in. Word reached Emily's mom's co-workers at the hospital, who organized a small fundraiser to show their support. "She's always the one helping others," one nurse said. "Now it's our turn to give back." They collected enough money to help with groceries and bills for the month, lightening the load on Emily's mom. Someone even surprised her with a gift card to a local spa, encouraging her to take a well-deserved day of rest. The jewelry store also felt the impact of the story. Curious customers came by, some to buy gifts, others just to see the store where it all happened. The Goldsteins, moved by the overwhelming response, began a kindness discount for customers buying gifts for loved ones, encouraging more heartfelt gestures. "It's amazing how one moment can remind people of the good in the world," Mrs. Goldstein said with a smile. For Emily, the change was profound. Her mom's birthday became a day filled with laughter, tears of joy, and heartfelt moments. When Emily handed her the box with the gold pendant, her mom's eyes widened in disbelief. "Emily, this is beautiful," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. How did you manage this?" Emily explained everything, her months of saving, her visit to the jewelry store, and how Shaq had stepped in to help. Her mom was overwhelmed, not just by the gift, but by the love and thoughtfulness behind it. "You didn't have to do this," she said, pulling Emily into a tight hug. "Having you is the best gift I could ever ask for." But the impact didn't stop there. The story reached local news, highlighting how a simple act of kindness could ripple through a community. Inspired by Shaq's gesture, people began looking for ways to help others. A bakery owner started donating leftover bread to a homeless shelter, a group of teenagers organized a neighborhood cleanup, and a local mechanic offered free oil changes to single parents. For Emily, the experience left a lasting impression. She watched as her mom's burdens seemed to lighten, not just because of the gift, but because of the outpouring of support from people around them. It made her realize that kindness wasn't just about grand gestures, it was about the small, meaningful actions that built connections and spread hope. Shaq's act of generosity had created more than just a happy memory for Emily and her mom, it had reminded an entire community of the power of compassion. And as Emily's mom wore her gold pendant with pride, she often told the story behind it, ensuring that its message of kindness would never be forgotten. The moment Emily handed her mom the beautifully wrapped box, she could barely contain her excitement. Her mom, sitting on their worn but cozy couch, looked at her daughter with a mix of curiosity and affection. "What's this, sweetheart?" she asked softly. "Just open it, Mom," Emily said, her voice trembling with anticipation. As her mom carefully unwrapped the box and opened it, her breath hitched. Inside was the delicate gold pendant, its star shape catching the soft light in the room. Her eyes filled with tears, and she gently traced the edges of the pendant with her fingers. "Emily, this is beautiful," she whispered, her voice breaking. Emily's heart swelled with pride and love. "I wanted to get you something special," she said. "You work so hard for us, and I wanted you to know how much you mean to me." Her mom pulled her into a tight embrace, tears streaming down her face. "You didn't have to do this. Just having you is the best gift I could ever ask for," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Emily hesitated before explaining the story behind the gift, how Shaquille O'Neal had stepped in at the jewelry store, not only upgrading her gift but teaching her a valuable lesson about generosity and kindness. Her mom listened, stunned by the tale, and wiped her tears as she smiled. "That's incredible," she said. "But do you know what's even more incredible? You. You worked so hard for this, and that means more than anything." The pendant wasn't just a piece of jewelry, it became a symbol of love, sacrifice, and the extraordinary impact of one person's kindness. Emily learned that it wasn't the price of the gift that mattered, it was the thought and effort behind it. Shaq's gesture was a reminder that kindness wasn't about how much you had, but about the willingness to share what you could to make someone else's life a little brighter. In the days that followed, Emily often thought about what Shaq had said, that kindness has no cost but can mean everything. It became a lesson she carried with her, shaping how she treated others and inspiring her to find ways to give back whenever she could. For Emily's mom, the pendant was more than a gift, it was a reminder of her daughter's love and the kindness of a stranger who had turned an ordinary day into something extraordinary. And for Emily, it was the start of a lifelong commitment to spreading that same kindness, one small act at a time. Kindness has the power to transform lives, as Emily's story beautifully shows. It's not about how much you have to give, it's about the thought, the effort, and the willingness to make someone else's life a little brighter. A single act of kindness can ripple outward, inspiring hope and positivity far beyond what you might imagine. Take a moment to reflect, how can you make a difference today? Whether it's a smile, a helping hand, or a small gesture of support, every action counts. Let's create a world where compassion and generosity are celebrated and shared. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Please like, comment, and share this video to spread the message of kindness. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that remind us of the good in the world. Together, we can make kindness a movement that changes lives.